Saltanat Nukenova tried leaving her husband, Kuandak Bishimbayev, 12 times in a span of 11 months. Now, while it is completely natural for married couples to have fights and disagreements, leaving your spouse 12 times in a span of 11 months is a bit excessive. So why was Saltanat Nukenova leaving her husband 12 times? And most importantly, why was she coming back every single time? It seems like Saltanat Nukenova's marriage to Kuandak Bishimbayev was doomed from the very beginning. So for those of you who haven't watched my previous videos, you probably don't know this, but when Kuandak Bishimbayev first discovered Saltanat Nukenova on Instagram, she was actually engaged. But unfortunately, her engagement fell apart and Kuandak Bishimbayev began pursuing her immediately. They began sort of seeing each other in August of 2022, and by October of 2022 he already proposed to her and she said yes. In December of 2022 they get married, and unfortunately on November 9th, 2023, Saltanat Nukenova's body would be found in a restaurant that was owned by Kuandak Bishimbayev. It is speculated that he spent around 8 hours violently beating her and torturing her, which eventually led to her death. Now, their relationship was progressing awfully quickly, and it's sort of like in of itself appears to be like a red flag. Now, because their relationship was progressing at an extreme speed, Saltanat's friends and family didn't really get to know Kuandak. They only somewhat got to know him after the marriage. Before their marriage, Kuandak Bishimbayev says that their relationship was going okay. The only problem was that every now and then Saltanat would get cold feet and she would tell him that this is happening too soon. But then she would just go back and they start seeing each other again. Now, Kuandak Bishimbayev insists that he thinks that their relationship wasn't progressing that quickly in his mind. He says that he was looking for a wife because he is already in his 40s. He didn't care for a girlfriend. No, he wants to get married. So he thought that Saltanat would be a good wife and he just proposed to her. Now, a lot of their problems began after their marriage, and according to Kuandak Bishimbayev, their first fight happened after his wife confessed to him that she used to be a mistress of a very rich and powerful businessman in Kazakhstan. Now, the reason why she decided to confess now and not before they got married was that she apparently was engaged twice before him, and her first fiance, after he found out about her affair with this man, he just broke off an engagement with her. So she decided like there was no need to tell Kuandak, but apparently Kuandak Bishimbayev personally knew this guy, and he even had a photo of himself with this man in his office. So every single day, whenever Saltanat would enter his office, she would just see that photo and it made her feel guilty, so she decided to come clean. Now, Kuandak says that he was extremely hurt by this revelation, and he felt like now everybody would just talk behind his back, and it made him feel bad, obviously. But he says that he decided to forgive Saltanat because he just loved her so much, and it didn't matter what other people would say behind his back because he loved Saltanat, and as long as she was with him, that's all that mattered. Now, somewhere along this time, he says that Saltanat changed completely. All of a sudden, she became very possessive, very jealous. She would call him all the time, demanding to know where he was, what was he doing, who he was with. And this quickly got old for him. Whenever he would confront her about it, Saltanat would apparently just storm out. He says that once he was in a business meeting and Saltanat called him on a video call, he didn't pick up, and that made her feel so upset that when he came home, he didn't find her. She packed some of her stuff and went to a hotel. Now, Kwandak Bishimbayev says that after all of their fights and after her, leaving, she would just come back on her own. And usually she would stay at a hotel for a couple of days and she would come back and act like nothing happened. And this even became a pattern in their marriage, according to Kwandak Bishimbayev. Now, since Saltanat Nukenova is not with us to give us her version of events, we can only recollect those events from her friends and family members, and her friends claimed that it was the complete opposite. Kwandak was the controlling one. He didn't want her to work, he didn't want her to go out with her friends, he just wanted her all to himself. Her friends say that Saltanat told them that Kwandak would just talk to her all night long and not let her sleep, and this was really getting to her. I mean, imagine not sleeping at night. And this is something that Kwandak's ex-wife confirmed. She said that, by the way, his ex-wife was married to him for 13 years and they shared 3 children together. And his ex-wife says that while she was married to him, he would also keep her up all night just talking to her. Now, he wouldn't talk about their kids or her or his parents. No, he would only talk about himself, and he would get extremely upset and angry if she wouldn't stay up and listen to him. She says that Kwandak is somebody who can function off of like 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. Like, he just doesn't sleep, and when he's up, like, his wife has to be up. When he talks, his wife had to like attentively listen to everything that he was saying. Again, Kwandak Bishimbayev appears to have this superiority complex, and he's very much self-involved. Even his therapist diagnosed him with narcissism. So yeah, this guy is kind of weird. So this is another thing that Saltanat Nukenova mentioned to her friends, that he just didn't let her sleep. Now, another interesting fact here is that at some point Saltanat left Kwandak Bishimbayev, and I guess she was intending to leave him for good. However, he was paying her rent and her deposit, and they would sort of stay in touch, and then they got back together. Now, Kwandak Bishimbayev says that while they were married, Saltanat had everything. He would give her an allowance every month that was around $11,000. He would buy her all of the designer clothes and Rolex watches. And Saltanat had, maids at home. She had drivers. So he said that she did nothing at all. He said that once he even told her that he would like for her to wake up in the morning and make him a coffee before he goes to work. But even this was too much for Saltanat to do. He said that Saltanat did everything so spontaneously. She never had a routine. She would sleep in every day. So, and he's the kind of guy who wakes up early in the morning and goes to work. This is what he says. He even says that, whenever she would leave him and stay at hotels, he was the one paying for the hotels, and Saltanat didn't have any money of her own. Now, this is money issue in this relationship is kind of interesting. So Saltanat's brother claims that Saltanat used to make, a decent living just off of doing her astrology readings. She had a ton of clients. She would see 3 to 4 clients a day, she'd make a living, and she was well off. However, her brother claims that after Saltanat married Kwanduk, he wouldn't allow her to work. He wanted her to be like a stay-at-home wife, so she stopped working. And since I assume maybe she didn't save any money or invest any money, she was financially dependent on Kwanduk. Now, another fact that I find kind of confusing, a bit unclear, is that Saltanat's brother claims that before Saltanat even met Kwanduk, that she had her own apartment. Right? Now, if she had her own apartment and her apartment was in the same city where she was living with Kwanduk, why was she leaving to hotels every time? And at some point she was renting a place. Why wouldn't she just go back to her own house? It's kind of weird. And her brother, I think, mentioned that he was staying at her house, so that part is a bit unclear. Now, when it comes to money, her cousin says that actually Saltanat would every now and then borrow money from her, but she would never return, and her cousin would never ask. Her brother mentions that once Saltanat borrowed money from him, which was, not like her. She always had her own money. Even Saltanat's assistant, who used to assist her in astrology readings, says that at some point Saltanat even borrowed money from her. So they seem to claim that Saltanat didn't have money. Now, Saltanat's husband Kwanduk claims that he was giving her $11,000 a month. She had the money, so he says that this is a complete lie. She never asked anybody for money because he personally made sure that she had the dough. So you can make up your own mind when it comes to this. Anyway, while Saltanat's phone was investigated during the trial, they weren't able to find a lot of things there. Unfortunately, Saltanat's first phone was broken during one of her fights with Kwanduk, and Kwanduk even brought up this fight himself. He said that they were in the VIP room of his restaurant, and it sounds like they would be there like all the time. Whenever they're not home, they're in his restaurant, and they got in a fight. They were drunk, they got in a fight, and he says that Saltanat took her iPhone and he threw it on Kwanduk's face, and iPhone broke after that. And he says that he got angry and he slapped Saltanat, and there was a bartender who confirmed this. He said that he saw Saltanat and Kwanduk leaving the restaurant, and they both had like bruises on their faces. So her phone broke, and her new phone Kwanduk bought her on November 2nd or 4th, and Saltanat was found dead on November 9th. So this new iPhone was like brand new. And another thing to note about Saltanat is that she would often delete all of her conversations. She told her friends that Kwanduk would check her phone all the time, and if he saw a random conversation that had nothing to do with him, but he just found it upsetting for whatever reason, he would like create a fight out of it, like out of thin air, like why are you saying this or that. So therefore Saltanat had a habit of deleting her conversations on WhatsApp. Another thing that is kind of weird is her cousin, when she was giving her testimony, mentioned that Saltanat at some point even told her to not message her on WhatsApp unless she was the one messaging her first, because Kwanduk could check her phone and that could end up in a fight. However, they found some stuff in Saltanat's notes, and I translated it for you guys, and I will read them for you now. So the first note goes, "I'm leaving forever. I understood that there are no feelings left. I can't and I don't want to save this relationship. You don't even apologize for cheating on me. You only blame me and insist on therapy. You're so blind that I can't take it anymore. Forgive me, forget me, and let go. I made a decision for myself. I'll stay with my parents. They'll take care of me." Now, Kwanduk Bishimbayev did admit that at some point he had a sexual relationship with a woman, but it only happened when Saltanat left him. So he says that in his mind, he thought that he was a single man and he didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Now, in Saltanat's mind, they weren't through yet, so she probably thought that she would like go back to him and they would reconcile. But when she found out that he cheated on her or had sexual relationship with another woman, this made her extremely upset. Now, another thing to note, she mentions that Kwon-duk insists on therapy, and this is actually true because they found on Kwon-duk's phone that he was in therapy with Saltanat. They were having couples therapy with this Russian therapist. They would have it on Zoom, I guess, and after every session she would send feedback. And in one of her feedbacks, she mentions that Kwon-duk is a narcissist, and Kwon-duk and Saltanat have very unhealthy attachment issues, that their wants in relationships are completely different. Now, Kwon-duk apparently wanted Saltanat to cook dinner for him 5 days a week. He wanted, to come home to a nice dinner and to talk to Saltanat, and he wanted her to be extremely present and engaged with him. And what Saltanat wanted was her own space. Therapist said that Saltanat's actions would always be impulsive, but it was sort of good because being impulsive means you're listening to your instincts. And she said that Saltanat did want her own space. She was an introvert, but unfortunately Kwon-duk would perceive it as rejection. So whenever Saltanat is not paying any mind to him and doing her own thing, Kwon-duk just feels like he is being rejected, and that's why they would have a lot of fights. However, when Saltanat was talking about their relationship with the therapist, she apparently mentioned that Kwon-duk is very critical of her. He almost makes it sound like everything she does is wrong, and on her part, she would just want Kwon-duk to be less critical of her. And yeah, it does sound like this guy has a huge ego and he thinks he's the smartest person in the room and very critical of everything. So this is what the therapist mentioned. The next note reads, "Hello, my love. I look at our pictures and my heart aches. You do everything for me. I see your efforts and care. But I'm tired of our fights. I'm tired of always having to prove my love. This isn't the way to live life. I'm not a toy, not your kid. There is no need to intimidate me, to repeat the same thing over and over again. I'm not stupid if you didn't notice. I don't want to hear what I should do and how I should do it 24/7. I get it all myself. After our fights, I need a full day to recover, and after I have to take care of my own business, to welcome you with a smile, and God forbid I'll be tired. For the love and marriage to work, you need a solid foundation of trust and respect. Otherwise, our efforts are worthless. Everything will fall like a cart house." Now, Kwon-duk Bishimbaev, while they were investigating his phone, they found out like some messages between him and Saltanat, and how Saltanat again was telling him that a lot of the things that she has now were bought by him, and that he just gave her this wonderful life and that she was grateful. And they tried to make him like seem like a good husband, because his defense keeps insisting like, hey, look, he tried to get therapy for them, he was buying her gifts. Even Saltanat herself in the notes is recognizing this. Hey, you're doing so much for me, but they still keep having fights. And I guess Kwon-duk kind of wanted to make Saltanat look like this ungrateful wife, because in his mind, she gets everything she wants. She doesn't have to work, doesn't have to cook, doesn't have to clean. She just receives whatever she could want, and they go travel. She's just living her best life, and even that is not enough for her. But was it all like that, or is he, lying about some stuff? Now, her friends did mention that Saltanat told them that he was physically abusive with her, so Kwandak Bishimbayev makes it sound like it only happened very few times. Once, it was that time when Saltanat sent a picture of herself with bruises to her brother. Another time was when she threw her iPhone on his face, and he got so mad and he slapped her. And the last time was on November 9th. That's when he lost his temper with her and he ended up being physical. But other than that, he would never be physical with her. He loved her. Why would he ever hurt her? But her friends, they say a completely different story. Her friends claim that he would be physically abusive with her quite often. And this kind of became a routine in their marriage. And when they were like checking Saltanat's phone, they went at some point to Mali. They went to some island for travel, and she was wearing a bikini in those photos, and while they were investigating it, they saw a lot of bruises on her body. So it seemed like violence was a very big part of their marriage, unfortunately. Even her assistant said that once she met with Saltanat for coffee and she saw a lot of bruises on her body, like she saw some marks on her neck as if like she was being choked, and on the right side of her arm. However, the assistant said that when she met her for coffee, she like wore clothes that covered most of her skin, so she couldn't see all of it. Maybe there were more bruises that she didn't see, but those were just the ones that she noticed. Even in one of the conversations with her best friend, Saltanat mentions that Kwandak is a monster, that he loves her, but he loves manically, and she just can't take this anymore. She asks her friend to help her find a lawyer, and she tells her friend that Kwandak is not gonna, let her go that easily. Kwandak knows that her family now has a picture of her all bruised up, and he thinks that they're gonna use it to blackmail him and get money out of him. So in order to protect himself, he forced her to do a video where she is completely naked, so that way he has like a counter blackmail on her. And when her friend asks her, like, did you do the video? She says, yes, I had no choice. Now, Kwandak Bishimbayev says that this is not true, that they did have intimate videos. They start making them while they were on vacation, but they were consensual, and it's just something that they enjoyed doing. But he says that at no point he forced her to make a naked video for him so that he could use it as a blackmail in the future, so he completely denies it. Another thing to note is that on the night of the murder, when Kwandak Bishimbayev was beating his wife to death, she was completely naked. And it seems like weird. Why was she naked? According to Kwandak Bishimbayev, he says that she just started like tearing her clothes and tossing it at him, but like all of her clothes, like even her bra and her underwear, like that's kind of weird, no? And when they further investigated his phone, they found 12 videos where Saltanat is naked and he is trying to get her to confess having an affair with Raimbek Baitalov, this famous businessman in Kazakhstan. And in all of the videos, she is naked. In one of the videos, he is telling her to look for something, and apparently she was naked on the floor, like crawling and looking for something while he is taking a video of her. Now, this is so vile and so crazy, and it's like, this guy was really enjoying torturing her, like he was getting something out of it. Whoa. So Why was she coming back? I guess we will never find out, but it is safe to assume that this marriage was extremely toxic, and perhaps indeed they both had unhealthy attachment issues, so maybe that's why she was coming back. Perhaps she loved him. Perhaps she felt very sorry for him, like she was the only person in his life who genuinely cared about him. Anyway, that is it for today. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos, and this week the trial is set to end and I will give you more updates, and until next time.